So I apologize for that. Had some technical difficulties there, so we have to split this screencast up into three different parts. And again, I'm sorry about that, but hopefully that won't be a problem to you. So we looked at Hinduism here before my computer kind of messed up. What happens here in the Indian society is that around the 6th century, the society here is kind of ready for something different. They're not happy with Hinduism, most of the Indian population, especially the poor population, because they're not happy with the caste system. And into this mix, this 6th century BCE, we had the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, and I'm not going to go through his whole life here in this review, but you remember the 4 trips that he took, and the fact that he was alerted to the fact that life is full of suffering. He came up with this notion of the Four Noble Truths, which basically are that life is full of suffering. The reason why we have suffering is because of the fact that we desire material things. That's the second noble truth. The third noble truth is that the way to end suffering is to end this desire. And then the fourth noble truth is the way to end this desire is to follow the Eightfold Path. And I don't think it's necessary for you to know either the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path, all the different truths or all the different paths, but you should know that it's basically a guide on in regards to how to live a good and successful life, how to be a good person. Don't lie, don't steal, be kind, etc., etc. So if you can remember that about Buddhism, that will be helpful. The other thing that you probably should remember about Buddhism is that Buddha, although he had a lot of good ideas, he never got over this notion that women are inferior. Again, as you might remember, we talked about during class that he viewed women as a distraction to men that took them away from their religious duties. So again, that's a quick summary of Buddhism, which now, back in the 6th century BCE, coexists with Hinduism in India. We then turn to the Minoans and the Phoenicians, and I'm going to be very, very quick here with the Minoans and the Phoenicians. Basically, what you need to know about the Minoans and the Phoenicians were that they were seafaring people, which meant that they were good at building boats. They carried out a lot of trade across the Mediterranean. They also came up with a number of different inventions here. The Minoans came up with early versions of the compass and the maps, and the Phoenicians, as you should be familiar with by now, came up with the alphabet. That's again the most important things that you need to know about the Minoans and the Phoenicians. You should also have an idea of the time period, which I forgot to put in here. The time period when they existed is roughly 1500 BCE to about 1000 BCE. So 1500 BCE to about 1000 BCE. The last part of the chapter number 3 is the section that deals with the Hebrews. And as you might remember, the Hebrews originated in northern Mesopotamia, and they were led by the patriarch Abraham, who had a vision from God that God or Yahweh told him to move to Canaan, to the promised land. So Abraham took the Hebrews to Canaan around 1800 BCE. And things were going really well for the Hebrews for a few hundred years, up until about 1500 BCE, when they had a very, very severe drought for several years here. The only place where they could find some grain was in Egypt. So the Hebrews flew to Egypt, or not flew, but fled to Egypt, sorry about that, and became enslaved, unfortunately. So things did not go well for the Hebrews in Egypt. After a couple hundred years as slaves, they were freed by Moses, and Moses took them back from the captivity in Egypt back to the promised land in Canaan. And as you should be familiar with, on the way back from Egypt, this covenant was struck between Yahweh and the Hebrew people. And that is the covenant is a contract between Yahweh and the Hebrew people. And this, of course, happened on Mount Sinai, where Moses received the Ten Commandments, And Yahweh told Moses and the Hebrews that if you follow these 10 commandments, I will make you my chosen people. I will protect you. I will look after you. I will make sure that you have a good life from here on out. So the Hebrews came back into Canaan around 1100 BCE, but they were still not united. There were 12 different tribes, and these tribes did not get along very well, so they fought with one another pretty much constantly. One of the things that happened here is that another group of people here called the Philistines saw this as an opportunity to attack the Hebrews. And I apologize for my dog barking in the background there. So the Philistines took this as an opportunity to attack the Hebrews. So things are not going well here for the Hebrews. They are really on the verge of losing to the Philistines. And eventually, this king Saul, one of the great 3 kings of the Hebrews, he finally united the Hebrews around 1020 BCE. And this really helped because it made them stronger and it made them more unified, and then they were able to kind of stop this onslaught from the Philistines. The next king, David, is the one that really kind of puts the final touch on defeating the Philistines here. Saul had already started to kind of turn the tide in this battle, but David is the one that puts the finishing touches on defeating the Philistines, and he also conquered Jerusalem, which became the central city for the Hebrews during this time period, as well as for many thousands of years to come. The third great king here is the king Solomon. And Solomon followed immediately after David. Solomon ruled from 1005 to David ruled from 1005 to 965, and Solomon ruled from 965 to 925, all BCE here. And so what Solomon did is that he created a lot of very beautiful buildings. He really helped to improve the Jewish state, the Hebrew state. He also split the territory up into 112 provinces, which helped the government become stronger. And he built this great temple into which he put the Ark of the Covenant. Unfortunately, though, the way that he paid for this was through high taxes. And as we'll see here in a minute, these high taxes are going to be a bit of a problem for the Hebrews as we move forward. Because as long as Solomon was alive, people were kind of happy to pay these taxes. They said, Solomon is a great ruler. I'm willing to pay these taxes. I know it's a lot, but we're getting a lot of good stuff out of it, so I don't mind paying it. However, when this strong ruler here, Solomon, when he passed away, the Hebrews started to split over the issue of taxes here. And as a result, again, they were weakened because they were not as united, and they were attacked by the Assyrians, who were a very, very fierce population group here. The Assyrians captured the Hebrews, but then pretty soon thereafter, the Chaldeans defeated the Assyrians. And then the Chaldeans took the Hebrews prisoners and brought them to Babylon. And this is the Babylonian captivity, where the Chaldeans kept the Hebrews captive for almost 100 years. Eventually, though, the Persians defeated the Chaldeans. This is, of course, the famous incident where Cyrus the Great freed the Hebrews here. So the Hebrews basically spent close to 400 years being controlled by other population groups, and a lot of times the conditions during these 400 years were really, really bad. But eventually, in 550 or in 540 rather, when Cyrus the Great defeated the Chaldeans, he set the Hebrews free, which brought them back to Canaan and Jerusalem. So that is the end of chapter 3 right there. I'm going to continue for a little while longer here with the review. This is probably going to be more than we have time to cover in class during first, second, and third period, but I'll make this screencast available to first, second, and third period as well, so they can participate in this review as well. So I won't go through all of chapter 4, but I'll move through a little bit longer here before we put an end to this review. I'll focus on the early parts in chapter 4 because again we've kind of looked at the last parts here during the last couple of days, and I think that you hopefully remember those. So the beginning part of chapter 4 looks at the new kingdom in Egypt, which basically was in place between 1500 BCE and 1000 BCE. The way you can summarize this kingdom is that it was very expansive. It focused a lot of gaining more territory, and they were very good at gaining this territory. They were very, very powerful. This is one of the most powerful states in ancient history here. We do have a couple of really famous rulers. One, of course, was Hatshepsut. She was the first female pharaoh. And as you might remember from class, she did focus on warfare, but she actually focused more on trade, which really helped the economy of the new kingdom. It made the economy of the new kingdom really blossom and really flourish, and it made the Egyptian people quite wealthy. So she did quite well for herself as a pharaoh. We also had the relatively sad story of Amenhotep IV. He was the one who you might remember tried to make Egypt monotheistic. He declared Aton to be the only god. He banned all the other gods. Aton, of course, was the god of compassion and the god of the race of the sun. And again, I'm sure you remember this from class, he was the one that kind of went a little bit overboard in that he asked his soldiers to lay down their weapons, not fight, write letters to their enemies, and things would work out very well in the end. Of course, things did not work out very well for Amenhotep IV. We think that he suffered from a number of birth defects and then died relatively quickly. And both him and his wife Nefertiti, their graves were vandalized. Their faces were scratched off their coffins just to make sure that they would be punished in the afterlife. That's how unpopular Amenhotep and his wife were back in ancient Egypt in the New Kingdom. And of course, as soon as Amenhotep IV passed away, Egyptians went back to being monotheistic. So this attempt to create a monotheistic state really did not work out very well at all. The next population group here that we looked at were the Assyrians. And the Assyrians put together an empire basically between 900 BCE and 700 BCE. The Assyrians, as we said in class, were very warlike. That's all they focused on. They were very aggressive. They originated in northern Mesopotamia, which was an area that was did not have a whole lot of natural barriers, so they constantly had to fight. They developed a number of good military tactics, whether that would be siege warfare, whether that would be guerrilla warfare. So they're very, very smart. Again, we talked about in class that they brought engineers out in battle with them, which was another great thing. They also had very, very good weapons technology. They had the best weapons at the time. But despite the fact that they were cruel, they were very good, aggressive warriors. In the end, the Assyrians did not last very long, and the reason for that is basically that at the end of this, they just made too many enemies. There were too many people that were upset with them, and there were too many people that were unhappy with them. So basically, people kind of banded together and started attacking the Assyrians one after another, which led to the downfall of the Assyrian Empire. And as we looked at in chapter 3, the Chaldeans are the ones that finally defeat the Assyrians. So I'm going to put a stop to this review right here. Again, we have really just two pieces left in this review. That's the Persians and the Chinese belief system. But again, we did that last week, so hopefully that's fresh in your mind. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope that this review has been helpful for you. But again, any questions that you have, write them down, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Good luck studying.